Impzonepod podcast fam. How's it going for today? We're back here again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And well, today I want to talk about relying upon the stars of the past. Now, I've talked about this ad nauseum, obviously, throughout lots of different videos, but I want to cover it again in another video here because, like, a lot of wrestling companies are guilty of this. This is like the problem that TNA had back in like 05, 06, 07, that kind of era, and even in like 2010. Actually, more of like that era, I think, more so they had the let's rely on WWE like stars and whatnot. It's fine. Again, it's fine to have some WWE stars if we can market them as, no, these guys aren't just these, ex-WWE guys. You've got to market them like, well, Jeff Hardy, he was here a few years ago or whatever else it was, and he brought he brought more creativity, he brought a different edge, a different style to his presentation here in TNA, like, or whatever. So you have to start thinking more unique, more things for him, like, okay, what's Jeff Hardy going to do here that's more unique, that's more about him or whatever that he didn't do in WWE or whatever. How can we refresh that thing? You've got to keep it the same or similar in some ways, but yes, you've got to be like, fresh coat of paint. You're back here in TNA. Let's do something different with you. Let's do things in a different way with you. Let's figure out how we can do those things with you. So you're not just here being, I'm the guy that's from WWE and I'm back here now or whatever else it is. It's like, yes, you're here now. Okay, cool. Right. But now we need a fresh coat of paint. Or we need to, sometimes you need to dig back up some of the old issues that you had before or whatever else it was and things like that. Because again, you can get that problem of this is old hat. And that's a lot of the problems that I've noticed in the last few weeks and the last few months of TNA booking. It's a lot of, it seems like, again, I said perhaps not, I don't know whether you would call it erroneously, but sort of semi-erroneously, that they didn't really have anything going on in terms of stories, in terms of booking, and in terms of, title challengers, especially, like, mainly for the world title, because, again, unfortunately, or whatever, that's the main thing that will draw crowds to see this sort of thing. And they've been pushing, seemingly at least, Eric Young of late to do that. And, like, again, I don't want to disrespect the guy. The guy's done a whole lot, and does he maybe deserve a match at a certain point at a certain time? Okay, yeah, sure. But again, we don't know when that's going to be. But again, a lot of these things that you're doing feel very, very like, we're gonna have this happen next week or the next month or whatever else it is, but you haven't built anybody for Slammiversary. You haven't had anything that's going to happen at Slammiversary. You've announced the Ultimate X at Slammiversary. You've announced the ladder match at Slammiversary. You've got this great rivalry between the Hardys and the Righteous, but you're having all of these random matches along the way that aren't really meaning something or meaning anything, and they're not going to finish and end the feud. This feud has been going on for weeks and months, and yes, you could keep it going, and that'd be great, because there is still some meat on the bones there in terms of the feud, in terms of the story itself, but when you're going to blow away the few matches that these guys can actually have in the few weeks that you've got, it just doesn't work. You've got to say, okay, even if we're, like, again, the old stars, the Hardys, we're focused in on them, which is Not great, but hey, here we go. We've got this new-ish team, the Righteous. What are they gonna get out of it? Why does that matter? Like, again, if you're saying these guys aren't interested in and aren't ever gonna win the tag team titles and are basically never gonna wrestle anybody else except for the Hardys, then it's like, well, why should people give a rat's ass about what they do? You know what I mean? Because unless somebody else can beat them and actually have a match with them, yes, I know the system and this and that beat them or whatever else it was, but that, like, that has been very few and far between and whatnot. And yes, again, like I've said as well, like, they need to be built up. They need to have more wins so that they can feel like they're an actual threat somewhat to the Hardys, where else they've just basically lost almost all their matches to the Hardys. I think they've only won one match in TNA since they've been here. And that's ridiculous. Like, they should have won at least half dozen matches in this whole thing. And again, like, should they lose here or there? Yeah, sure, they should lose here or there or whatever else it is. But again, they should be winning. And they should be having matches against other people. And again, or whatever. Or maybe the Hardys cost them wins. Or maybe the Righteous cost the Hardys wins. Or whatever else it is. Things like that. Or again, start having some more multi-men matches. Have the Hardys and Mike Santana versus the Righteous and, I don't know, somebody else. It doesn't matter. Mike and the Hardys versus the Righteous and Macklin. I don't know. Fine. I don't care. You know what I mean? Something. Let's see it. And I said before, like, here you have this, like, I would love to see Macklin and Santana in a proper pay-per-view level match. I hope that this upcoming match ends in GQ, or something like that. And I hope that the fans rally. Please give us Santana and Macklin at Slammiversary. Because there's just nothing going on. I am no interest in seeing, Eric Young, wrestle at Slammiversary against Mike Santana, unless it's like in a 5-way match or something like that. That would be more acceptable. I could accept that. That could be fine. But again, there just doesn't seem to be any cohesive plans. All the plans that you seem to have seem to be like, okay, we're going to get through this week or this set of tapings or whatever else it is. And then once we're actually at Slammiversary, we'll go, oh shit, yeah, we've got a pay-per-view in the next couple of weeks. Oh, whoever, whatever, go in there and wrestle Santana with no story, no real build-up or whatever. And maybe it will be Eric Young, I don't know. Maybe he deserves one last big shot at the title or whatever else it is. But he's had several big shots at the title on these big pay-per-views, along with like guys like Eddie Edwards and guys like that. Your problem hasn't been like, having these guys who are talented and can do anything and do everything when it is called for. It's been building your new crop of talent. You've been over-reliant on your past talent. Having those talent there and having them do great things is amazing and is cool and, is, something that, you should have capitalized more on in the past, like the whole Violent by Design and the design storyline that you had years ago. That went absolutely nowhere. Like, why even have that story if it didn't have a payoff? You know what I mean? It didn't lead to anyone getting anything out of it. It didn't lead to anyone being elevated or anything else. You know what I mean? So it was a great story, but it didn't lead to anything. So again, what was it there for? It needed to get somebody new and young and up and coming over. It needed to get somebody from the lower card to the mid card to the upper card. You know what I mean? You haven't done that with anyone. You have just gone, oh, we haven't built anyone, so we'll go back to Eric Young. Or we'll go back to the guys that we already kind of have. We'll go back to guys that, Nick Nemeth. We'll go back to these guys that we've already got that are already established. And it's not bad to use them, but you can't keep falling back on them just because they're the guys that have some equity in them. Again, the only way new guys will ever get equity in them and will ever become a big deal and actually become a draw is if you treat them like Santana. Is if you say, okay, we're going to put them front and center, and they are going to be the new generation. They are going to be the ones that are getting over. They are the ones that are going to be taking the wins. And yes, like some of the veterans and whatnot need to be phased out, or at least like whatever, slowly. But yes, they still need to win some matches and win some moments and have some of the upper hand at some points. And again, like if you're going to have Eric Young just lose to Santana, which I'm assuming is what's going to happen, what does that achieve? That's great for Santana, but again, he is a made man. So we need to make other people. We need to have, and again, like that's not to say that, only the old guys or whatever, the old guard, shouldn't be there or whatever else it is. No, but they can be have to be a useful part of the engine. And not to say that they can never have matches in that main event or that semi-main event space or whatever else it is, or put somebody like Santana over. But again, like it starts becoming like, well, why are we doing this? Because we don't have anyone else. We haven't built anyone else. Well, then we need to take the time to build these other people. You know what I mean? That's what you should have been doing for the last 3 months. You should have been saying, right, AJ Francis, we really want to push you. You've been a really big thing in the division. Let's, actually put you in that perspective. Let's give you some big things. Like this thing that he's doing with was seemingly doing with Casey Navarro. Okay, cool. Casey Navarro is back. That's great to see him back. And great to see him be able to beat, AJ Francis in his return match. That was great. A little bit of revenge, but then he loses in the street fight. That's all right. Even in that, that's fine. Because again, you don't want Francis to look too weak or whatever. And you don't want people to be like, oh yeah, KC, looking too good, too strong, too whatever, whatnot, that sort of thing. That's a little bit too unbelievable to think, you can believe, hey, he got, maybe a cheeky win or whatever else it was over the big man. Okay, cool. That sort of thing. He used his size against him to overcome the odds or whatever else it was, that sort of thing. He used his quickness and his speed and his ability and whatnot to and a little bit of a distraction or whatever else it was to get the win. A little bit of surprise, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. All right, sure, cool, great, that's fine. But, and again, like he's not in that level yet where he could be in that upper card, but he should be, at least taken care of and at least say, hey, again, you've come back. We want to make you a big deal. And you had this big thing going on with him and that sort of thing. So here's like the start of that. You can't win this feud. Well, we can't make you win this feud to start with, at least for now, whatever. Maybe we'll come back to it. That's fine. AJ has to win that. He has to get, now say, hey, after I beat Casey Navarro and that, and now I'm coming for the world title because I'm going to be money, 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 all that, that's what he should have said, and that sort of thing. And maybe even saying, oh, but Nick Nemeth is standing in my way and something like that or whatever else, that sort of thing. My last hurdle is Nick Nemeth or whatever to get to the world title or whatever. Or at least in his mind, or one of the last hurdles. besides like Santana, because that's obvious. But, okay, so now it has to be between Francis and friggin' Nick Nemeth, and build him up, build Francis up. And we need more big time, especially younger or newer heels. I love Macklin. Macklin is awesome. And like, again, just bringing him back, and here he is, and like, oh my god, he's going to have a match this week. And of course, the results are already out there, so people can already know what happened. So again, that's really bad, because again, when you've got a world title match, and especially if it's like, hey, here it is next week, yes, people want to tune in, but then it's like, oh, it's a taped episode, so we can just look up again what happened. Did he win? No. Or did he win? Yes. Or whatever, so that takes a lot of interest out of, again, even though it was only a week ago or whatever it was, the tapings and that, still people will know, and I know not everybody, looks at those things, but again, like a lot of people do. And again, when you're in this competitive market with the the NFL, and all of these other different sports, and all these different other programs, and all these other different things, you cannot afford to have a night where it's like, oh, people know the result, so why are they going to tune in besides just to see like a good match, or maybe where we take the story. That's the thing. Like, yes, people could tune in for that. The loyal, diehard fans will tune in for that. But why would the more casual or the newer fans tune in? You know what I mean? You're going to have these dips, and you've got to make it exciting. You've got to say, okay, well, where's this going? Why is it going there? How's it getting there? Or whatever else it is. That sort of thing. Again, it doesn't feel like there's much behind this match. So again, I hope that it leads to something more later, because again, like, if it doesn't lead to something more later, it's like, well, why did we even do this then? Because this is the match, in my opinion, again, if you build it right, that should be at Slammiversary. Macklin and Santana. That should be the main event. Get back to what you were doing before with Macklin. Get back to, this guy's as dangerous as all hell, all of this sort of stuff. Or even, again, perhaps this, now Macklin and Eric Young are both working together, kind of, or whatever. They're both gunning for the title, triple threat. How about that? Even that's more interesting and more exciting than Eric Young is going to challenge Mike Santana. Even if Eric Young isn't going to challenge Mike Santana at Slammiversary, which I don't know what. Again, that's what I mean. Like, the plans just seem like we don't know what's happening. There's no real straight, like, and if you're going to do a multi-man, again, that's fine, but, or a triple threat or whatever, King of the Mountain, whatever, I don't know. But again, you've got to make it clear. What are we doing? Where are we going? Who are the contenders? Is Macklin, well, if Macklin's this week going to challenge Santana for the title, why would he win it when there's friggin' Eric Young right there who's going to challenge him in a couple of weeks or whatever else it is? Why would he win it when there's another hero right there? You know what I mean? There's no reason for him to win it at that point. And there's no reason for him to win it so close to Slammiversary. Why would you do it then? And that's where I've said the same thing with Lei Ying Lee and whatnot, that sort of thing. It's like, why would you have her win it so close to Slammiversary, but not at Slammiversary? You know what I mean? Yes, it was on a live episode, I believe. I think it was, wasn't it? Or was it? Was that taped? I don't know. I think it actually was taped in the recent episode where she came out and said, hey, I won was the live episode, and then Zaya came out and said, hey, I'm coming for you, whole thing. That was on the live. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm honestly same thing with like the Knockouts title. At least like in that division, you barely have anyone that's like old hat, so to speak. Like at least like it's all either current era wrestlers or future stars, which can be you know a tough mix. But again, at least you're not reliant on somebody from the past to being like, oh well, we just put you in there because we haven't built these young kids up or whatever else it is. That's your problem right there. You should be saying, right, we'll get you out there with some of the young kids, and you've got to build them up. So especially the heels, or especially the baby faces for whatever. But mostly, like, again, when you've got a legend coming in, everyone's happy to see the legend or whatever else it is. So 9 times out of 10, hey, they're the baby face. Things like this. Like Sting, like, again, go back to, guys like that. He was the big baby face from WCW. And for a little while, using him as a part of your programming and using him as part of a, hey, he's a big attraction here, come see Sting, whatever else it is. He's always going to be doing something big and something important and have a big feud and do something big. It doesn't have to be around the title. Keep him away from the title as much as possible, in fact, Don't like the main event Mafia story when he won the title from Joe. I think that was actually like one of the best stories that he had, and whatnot. Then facing AJ and losing to AJ after whatever it was, the last like several Slammiversary, Bound for Glories or whatever that he'd won every single one up to that point or whatever else it was. And that sort of changing of the guard or passing of the torch moment, I think that was perfectly or somewhat perfectly executed in some ways, because it was like, here we are and here we go. We've got this guy, to that level finally after so many years of working and working and working, and doing all the things needed to be done. And again, it's your own fiddle sometimes playing the song of your own like demise, where you're saying he's not good enough or he's not mainstream enough. No, that's your problem. There is your perspective that he's not good enough. You should be saying he's our front and center. He might not be, the Jeff Hardys. He might not be the Kurt Angles. He might not be the John Cena's, but he is AJ Styles and he is TNA. He is what TNA is all about. Even in his heel run, which I think was a bit mishandled, but I still think could have worked or whatever else it was. Never diminish. He still should be, like you should be saying he was the face of TNA. He represented all the things about TNA and and all this sort of stuff. And now Ric Flair's just trying to get him money, and Learjets and this and that. He's corrupted AJ and and all that sort of stuff. You should be referencing that he was and sort of still kind of is, that guy or whatever else it was, But now Flair's gotten into his ear and and all this other stuff, saying, hey, you'll get the things now that you never got when you were a kid, and promising him the good life and that sort of thing, That kind of thing would have worked really well. And then here's Jay Lethal, who I think that they were sort of somewhat building up at the time to become one of the next big people that was going to be in the company. And that woo off against Flair was great, and everyone remembers that. That's a good way to use that sort of thing. And it was surprising in some ways as well. But again, hey, whatever happened to that? Here we go with Jay looking like he could be in contention, then just sort of flitters off the map, and it never really gotten to, because again they started focusing too much in on, well, let's bring in some WWE guys. And again, like, you could bring in some of those WWE guys or ECW guys or whatever else it was and whatnot, but again, it can't take away from, you know, everything that we've got and everything that, you know, we have. And you've got to use as many people as what you've got as possible. This is the problem with AEW. Again, they've got like so many old school or older tag teams. They've got, well, besides, you know, I don't want to talk about TNA, but again, like, you've got, you know, again, you've got Edge and Christian, you've got the Hurt Syndicate, you've got all of these guys, you've got Edge and Christian. I think did I say Edge and Christian actually? I think I might have said Edge and Christian, but you've got FTR, you've got the Young Bucks. Those are all the older teams that have already been to that sort of mountaintop, and you don't really have, I mean, Private Party kind of, and a couple of other teams that are there kind of you have, but they're like already becoming like not just the current crop, but they're becoming like yesterday's news, old hat, because again, they've been in there for a long time and you really haven't established anyone else or anything else that has sort of stuck to the wall. You've had all these Franken teams like, you know, what was it, Hookhausen or whatever else, and you've had a few factions and things like this, like the House of Black or whatever else it was, things like that. And even that was like fairly old hat as well, you know, that had been done in WWE. TNA can't copy the same thing. You've got the Hardys. That's your one like true legacy tag team. And at least if you've got them, at least you've got that, okay, let's put that fresh coat of paint or a different coat of paint on them with the Broken Universe stuff. Hey, we created that Broken Universe stuff back all those years ago, almost a decade ago now. Or whatever it was. I think it was a decade ago now. Or maybe it was a little bit more, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, again, all that time ago we created that thing, and now here it is, you know, coming back, sort of thing. You know, you're going back to that to say, hey, we can't just do the same thing, you know, because again, the more we vary these things with our legends, the more we refresh them and the more we kind of change things. Yes, you can't change things every single week, but again, the more you sort of say, okay, let's lean back more into that sort of thing, or let's lean more into this, or let's lean more into that, is the more interesting and sort of, okay, it's delete season, you know, sort of thing, or whatever now, or whatever, or it's this feud or whatever else it is. At least there is that element where people are starting to be like, okay, this is going to be the, you know, another Broken Hardys thing or whatever else it is, you know, coming. You know, people are hyped to see that. And of course, they're hyped to see the Hardys in general, but again, they're hyped to see, hey, when's that going to pan out? How's that going to pan out? Or whatever else it is. So you got something there that people do kind of want to see, you know, again, even if like, again, like I've had the complaint so much of saying the Hardys need to be relegated to having shorter matches or more like segmenty style stuff there, and they need to be given younger, well, I don't know whether this actually helps sometimes because it actually makes them look even worse, but they need to be given younger opponents that can actually go out there and actually go and have, you know, an athletic contest out there. They don't need to do 500 dives or whatever else it is. That's true. But again, they need to, you know, look like, again, you know, they cannot trip over themselves, and things like this. They can actually do big things, and they can actually come close to beating these guys. But for what reason does it that the Hardys can, come back, or whatever else it is? Or maybe it's, again, somebody else getting jealous or getting like, haha, we'll get you, but they turn it around, or something else. Or, somebody else is feuding with this other team, and that costs them, or whatever else it is. That's how you make a division lively, is by having all these different interconnecting things of saying, okay, these guys are fighting these guys, and yet here they are, helping these other guys, or whatever else it is, sort of thing, even though that they last week they wrestled against them, or whatever else it was, those sorts of things. You have all of that going on. You're building up these new guys so that it's like, okay, these guys aren't just gonna be here this week, then disappear for a month or two, or whatever else it is, and then come back, and then we're not gonna do very much with them, or whatever else it is. No, they're gonna be a feature. Why did we hire them in the first place if we're not going to do anything with them? Why are they still on our receipt book, paycheck book, whatever else it is, if we're not going to utilize them? If we're not going to utilize them, we might as well say, okay, we've had you for a little while, we've really enjoyed working with you, but it's time for us to move on. Like, good luck out there, hopefully somebody will pick you up, or whatever else it is. That sort of thing. Do not hold on to people, and like that you're not going to use. If you're going to use somebody like Leon Slater or whatever else it is, absolutely try to keep him. Same thing for Josh Alexander a few years ago. Try to keep him. I know it's hard, but you've got to try to keep these people. Jordan Grace, even though it was like at a certain point, it's like, yes, have they done kind of everything that they can kind of do to an extent? Maybe, but still, like, trying to retain them will be, just so helpful in the long run. And it's just so hurtful, especially in the short term, to lose some of those people, and things like that. So you can't be afraid. And that's what I think sometimes it is. I don't know whether it's that they don't know what they're doing, or what. You have so many great talent, but you're just, I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing with them? You know what I mean? So, and like, again, let's get the call your shot trophy out of the way. Let's get it out of the way, because you're not gonna, unless like Nemeth's gonna call his shot for the tag team titles or something. I don't know. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. At a certain point, it's not gonna happen. Either you're gonna do something with them, or you're not. So, we've got to say, hey, why do we have these guys? Besides just they're here and they'll have a good match every now and again, or whatever. Well, why aren't we investing time and energy in them? Why aren't we trying to build them into the next superstar? We keep saying, hey, we need new superstars, or whatever else it is, but then we'll go out of our way to say, hey, don't go out there and have a great match. Don't go out there and get over. But yet you'll say, hey, go out there and have a great match and get over. Then in the next sentence, it's like this to and fro of like, or whatever, of just like, go out there and get over it. But then once you've done that, you'll go, oh, okay, well, but we don't have any plans for you for like 6 months, or for a year, or for whatever it is. We've just got nothing for you. Sorry, bye. It's so ridiculous. It's like, we need to put those people like Jason Hotch And these other guys, front and center, they need to be the guys that are going to, you know, be the guys that people are going to be talking about for the next 5 years or whatever else it is. You know, same with Trey Miguel, same with like Ace Austin was one of those guys that we should, should have got there, but didn't, you know. So we've had these opportunities, you know, and like I can understand some people who are like, oh man, well, why didn't they take their shot with me? Or why didn't they at least give me something else to work with or something else or whatever else it is? You know, going to WWE or going to AEW or whatever, saying, hey, well, I did everything that I could probably do there, so maybe it is time for, you know, change of scenery, a fresh coat of paint, so to speak, or whatever else it is, follow the next opportunity or whatever else it is, you know. So I can understand that. But again, like, still, it really hurts the company, you know, and it really hurts me to look out there, and I know the rest of the TNA fans as well, to see like guys that you know have left TNA, like Brian Cage and other guys like that as well, that you know and Willie Mack, who's basically just about starved to death. But Brian Cage returned first time in like what 18 months or something, jacked as all hell, you know. But it's like, why, like, why is he still there? What's the point of him still being there? They don't give a rat's about him because he hasn't been there in 18 months, bro. In 18 months, and you haven't even been booking Willie Mack, and he's just about homeless, bro. What the fuck? You know, what the hell? So much for you caring about your wrestlers and that, you know, there. You know, they've got to be booked to be actually having, you know, getting their money. So unless you're going to book them, you know, again, and that's the same thing in TNA. You can't just say, oh, well, we're interested in these talent. You've got to go, okay, well, what do we actually have for those talent? What creative do we have for those talent? How are we going to book them every week? Well, we don't actually think that they've got it. Well, why have we got them on our roster? Or whatever. Why are they here then? Or do we need our own developmental? You know what I mean? That's what the indies is about, you know, realistically. And if you're saying, hey, we're going to offer you a contract, that means that you're ready. We think you're ready to step up, you know, and be on TV and be on the road and whatever else it is with us. So you shouldn't give that to people who you will turn around and go, they're really not ready, or we really don't actually have anything for them. Well, why are we hiring them then? Why are we spending money on things that, you know, that we aren't going to utilize? You know what I mean? So, yeah, you've got to utilize your current crop, and you've got to build your future crop, and you've got to use your past crop to feature future crops and things like that, so to speak. Again, so the absolute, just like, to me, again, it's not about saying, hey, trying to disrespect anyone. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone or anything, except for maybe the guys who are actually writing this show. But the guys who are in there and doing what they're told or whatever, it's not their fault. It's not Eric Young's fault. It's not, you know, the Hardys' fault. It's not these guys' fault of saying, hey, this is the material that we were given to work with. You know, so it wasn't our decision to say, hey, you know, we should win here or we should win there or what, you know, whatever, all that sort of stuff. And I hope that at least, like, a lot of that old school politics, well, that doesn't work for me, brother, is long gone as well, you know, because that just does not help anybody, you know, sort of thing. obviously saying, hey, in some regards, hey, I need to be protected too. Yeah, sure, of course you need to be protected too. Everybody needs to be protected to some extent. But, again, saying, oh, well, that doesn't work for me, brother. And again, sometimes they need to do a better job of, like, protecting people or doing some of these things or whatnot. Because, again, like, they'll just put some of these things on Explosion. And it's like, oh, okay, you're just having a match on Explosion. That means next week or whatever it is when you're having this match that's coming up, hey, you're going to lose. Because obviously, why else would you be on Explosion? Why else would you be in a dark match to just get a random win? Oh, okay, yeah, you're losing next time. Yep. That sort of thing, And, yeah, I just don't know. To me, so much. I just wish I could have the fucking pen completely and just be like, okay, this is where we're going now, and that's it. You guys can help put together the show and actually put together the matches and be agents for the matches or whatever else it is and things like that or whatnot, and some ideas here and there or whatever, but on promos and different things or whatnot. But beyond that, no. I'm telling you, this is what we're doing. This is how we're getting there. Whatever. I would love it because I could actually put together, or hopefully put together, okay, some stuff, and it wouldn't be 100%. No one bats 1,000, so I do want to give them a little bit of a break in some regards as well. But still, saying, hey, come on, we've got to make it at least somewhat clear, especially this far out from Slammiversary, who is going to challenge Mike Santana. Where is somebody with a real story, and not just Eric Young? Please no. Even if that is your plan, please no. Please anything but that. Even, again, same thing as I said before, Macklin and Eric Young. Okay, at least there's something there. Yeah. Not the best, but at least like something. And I will take even Macklin and Santana again. Absolutely. If you build it right. If this thing should break down and they should just like absolutely smash each other with like chairs and frying pans and different things like that and whatever else. And yeah, just like go crazy out there and then, build something to Slammiversary. That's what I want. But yeah. I don't think anyone's excited to see Santana and Eric Young because it's basically a foregone conclusion. Because you're not going to put the belt on Eric Young at this point in his career. And even if you were, you shouldn't. Like, that's just, like I said in this whole thing, a terrible idea from multiple different directions. So, you should not do it. Now watch that they do it. Because again, like they've had, like I did notice it there the other week that they've had several different titles change hands in the last few weeks and the last few months. You know what I mean? So that does make me start to feel like maybe there's a title change happening soon in the world title picture. But why do it before Slammiversary? That's where I'm sort of struggling, because I would think like, let's do it at Slammiversary, even if it's underhanded, even if it's whatever else it is or whatnot. Macklin somehow beats, Eric Young or pins Eric Young when Santana's out of the ring or something like that, or whatever else it is, so Santana stays protected and, that sort of thing. And then we go, or something, I don't know, anything. And then we go to Lockdown or whatever else it is. That's that'd be great, actually. Like, where Santana and Macklin are finally going to, we're going to end this, and it's going to be in the 6 sides of steel or whatever, things like that, sort of idea. This is the last dance between these two, no interference, whatever, in in the steel, and again, I think we said this a long time ago, long time ago, and they said it might happen. Why not? And I don't know whether they'll do it this year, but maybe they'll do it next year, because I think next year's the 25th anniversary, I believe. Bring back the 6 sides. Even if it's just for one night, bring it back. Especially like for X Division style matches, Ultimate X, things like that. It really works well for those sorts of styles of matches, because you can have people coming this way, that way, and every which way kind of thing. And even just having that for one night, it'll be the first time in several decade or more, I think it is, that they would have had 6 sides. I can't remember the last time they had 6 sides, So doing that on special given nights, like Slammiversary, like that will sell tickets. Again, that will sell huge tickets. Saying, hey, 6 sides, we promise we'll bring it back, next year. Even just saying that. Next year, for the 25th anniversary of, Slammiversary, we will have 6 sides, Everyone will lose their fucking shit and be like, even if you don't announce it, which you should announce it fairly soon, but into next year or whatever else it is, and some of the dates next year, like, people will be like hyped for Slammiversary, because people will be like, yeah, we want 6 sides, all that sort of thing. Bring it back. One night only. 25 years of TNA. Where, like, really it didn't start in 6 sides, but the most successful period was in the 6 sides. That was the most iconic, era. The biggest era. You had some, former WWE, ECW, whatever stars like Rhino and guys like that were, hey, and Jeff Hardy, and, guys like that, Christian, and all of this sort of stuff, that were like big stars that, never really got a big enough hoo-ha in WWE, and I think more so Christian and Rhino at that time, you could have argued, hey, really, they're our guys, because, hey, they did stuff in WWE or did stuff in ECW, sure, but I think Rhino might have been world champion in ECW, but he really didn't do a whole lot in WWE. I think it was like hardcore champion a couple of times or something or whatever, but beyond that, he didn't really do a whole lot. Hey, now here he had this great story, and here he win the world title, and here he did this, and here he did that, and whatever else, and all of that stuff. Here's Christian, guy who was constantly underrated and told, no, you're not good enough, or whatever else it is, and all of this other stuff. We'll give you the chance. We'll make you the world champion. And it shouldn't be just, again, hey, we turn around and, hey, here's the title. No, it shouldn't just be that, but it should be saying, hey, if you come here, you get the chance. You get a chance, but you've got to prove yourself. If you can't, bring that, then it's like, well, you don't belong here. We only want the best of the best. And if you're not going to bring it in one form or another, then we don't want you. We don't want dead weight. We don't want old wood just hanging around that's just, again, ready to retire or ready to to pass on or whatever else it is. We want guys that are going to come here, that are going to fit with us, and that are going to raise up our new guys, because we cannot rely on these old guys anymore. That is what we need. So yeah, guys, I know I've said a lot of this stuff before. I have to say it again probably as well, again and again, but yeah. I also wanted to talk this week about like where we're at and what's going on, and I kind of am somewhat interested in what's happening this week. So we'll wait and see where things go, and I do hope that they actually put some time and some effort into like directing things into a certain degree, because even if the thing that they do isn't something that I enjoy, at least it's like, okay, at least here we are, this is where we're going. Okay, thank God we have something. Again, it's only like barely a month away from Slammiversary. We've had 3 months or whatever else it is since what was it? The last show? Can't remember actually now. Jesus. But yeah, we've had some months since that last show. But hey, here we go. We haven't had really anything brewing in the last 3 months. It's felt very, very lifeless. So, again, we should have been using this time to figure out who is going to challenge Mike Santana at Slammiversary. And we should have been building those stories and building those wrestlers up to say, okay, now you're going to fight Santana. It shouldn't feel like there's no one there. It should be like Santana's got to look around every single corner and around his shoulder all the time and all this sort of stuff. The contenders should be coming out of the woodworks after him. You know, you need to show that, not just say it or whatever. So, you know. But yeah, hopefully they will do that, and hopefully we will all enjoy it, and hopefully you will all come back and join me and enjoy another one.